So, as you might guess, the gospel reading is the story about the Pharisees who tried to trick Jesus. In case you were not listening, I just want to make sure that you know that. So, the lesson is from Matthew, again, a parable or story, if you will, about Jesus being confronted by the Pharisees. Listen for the word of the Lord. Then the Pharisees went and plotted to entrap Jesus in what he said. So they sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians, saying, "Teacher, we know that you are sincere and teach the way of God in accordance with truth, and show deference to no one, for you do not regard people with partiality. Tell us then what you think. Is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor or not?" But Jesus, aware of their malice, said, "Why are you putting me to the test, you hypocrites? Show me the coin used for the tax." And they brought him a denarius. Then he said to them, "Whose head is this, and whose title?" They answered, "The emperor's." Then he said to them, "Give therefore to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, and to God the things that are God's." When they heard this, they were amazed, and they left him and went away. This is the word of the Lord. Many of you, and perhaps most of you at this point, know that I have 3 children. I have 2 daughters and 1 son. Both of their parents have brown, curly hair. Well, you know, at one point it was brown. And one parent has brown eyes and the other has hazel eyes. And in a strange twist of DNA and the gene pool, 2 of my children have dark brown hair, although one was a towhead, and brown eyes. And I have one that has blonde hair that is barely curly, and she has blue eyes. Now, neither of the parents, me or their dad, was typically, well, really short. I'm 5'7", and their dad is over 6 feet. So, but the children, my children, range from 5'2" to 6'5". However, both the grandparents had sparkling blue eyes. The grandfathers had these sparkling blue eyes, and one was very tall, a high school football player. But neither of the grandmothers were very tall, at 5 feet and 5'4". So, how does this figure? And one day I remember in my sister-in-law's house, I was looking at a picture, and I thought it was my own daughter, and realized then it was not. It was her cousin. But they looked exactly alike, so that even her mother couldn't tell her apart. A strange twist of DNA and the gene pool. We have all heard from time to time that we either look nothing like our family, or we are the spitting image of Aunt so-and-so or Grandpa whatever. And what does it mean to be made in the image of another? Now, physical family traits show us whose family we belong to. But is it only the outward appearance that shows resemblance? Many people have a hard time being convinced that I've lived most of my life in South Louisiana, because I really don't sound like someone from South Louisiana. But the reason for that is that even though I lived most of my life there, my parents lived all their lives until we moved to New Orleans in the Northeast. So when we moved to New Orleans, this little family enclave, if you will, of Northeastern frugality and language customs and all that kind of thing was planted right in the middle of highly Catholic culture of New Orleans. So despite the fact that I was influenced somewhat by that culture, I never gave up what happened at home all the time. I never gave up my Reformed Christian work ethic. So my question is, who are we? And in whose image are we cast? The Pharisees and their disciples, along with the disciples of Herod, went to Jesus, a teacher who was considered to be full of integrity and truth, to ask if people owed allegiance to Caesar by paying taxes. So a coin was produced, a denarius, which was usually used to pay a daily worker a daily wage, and it was also used in all the common transactions of the Roman government. And Jesus said, "Whose likeness and inscription is on this coin?" And they said, "Caesar's." Now, I am sure they wondered what in the world that had to do with their very weighty question of taxation. But they were there to entrap Jesus, because, as we heard from Anna, either if they said yes, pay the tax, well, everybody would be mad because they didn't want to pay the tax. Nothing's new under the sun. And if Jesus says, no, you don't have to pay tax, then he would be guilty of treason by the Roman government. And the people from Herod were there ready to arrest him. So, Jesus looks like he's in a trap. But he escapes. And he answers their question with another question, which he usually does. And he says, "Whose likeness and inscription is this?" And then he says, "Give to Caesar that which is Caesar's, and give to God that which is God." In other words, give to God those things that bear the likeness and image of God. How do we determine what belongs to God? Where does our ultimate loyalty lie? Who are we? And in whose image are we cast? It all hinges on what is stamped, the likeness that is stamped on the item in question. Now, in Greek, the word likeness, or head, it was a head of Caesar, that word is icon. Now, we know about icons in computers that they stand for something else, but in the days of Jesus, an icon was indeed an image or a replica, but of a personage that was to be honored and respected and to be given homage and loyalty. So that group that gathers around Jesus that day, Jesus tells them that since the coin is stamped with Caesar, the icon of Caesar, that belongs to Caesar. But he states by implication that we are stamped with the likeness of God. You remember these words? In the beginning, and God said, "Let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness." So God created humankind in the image of God. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. So who are we? And to whom do we belong? In whose image are we made? The answer is clear, of course. We belong to God because we are made in the image of God. We are stamped with the likeness of God. Therefore, all we are belongs to God. The appropriate response, after knowing that we are in the likeness and image of God, is to give to God the things that are God's. Our true worship, our unfailing allegiance, and from our substance with a generosity that matches the boundless and limitless generosity of God. The Heidelberg Confession is one of the great documents of the Reformed tradition. It came out of Germany in the 1500s. And in that, as well as in our brief statement of faith, a very contemporary document that was adopted along about 1988, says it very well. We belong to God, body and soul, in life and in death. We belong to God, body and soul, in life and death. So I invite you to act out that understanding. Let us act out of who we are and what we are. There are many conflicting claims on our lives. I've talked about that before. And some of those claims, of course, need to be recognized. We have family, we have jobs, we have parents to care for, we have our civic duty. But our ultimate loyalty is to God, in whose image we were created. The minister was giving a sermon one day about total giving. And when it came time for the offering, the ushers came forward, and then the plate came to a pew where there was a young boy sitting in the pew. And he looked up at the usher and he said, "Could you lower the plate?" Thinking that he wanted to see what was in the plate, the usher lowered the plate. "No," said the little boy, "a little lower, please." So the usher lowered it a little bit more. "More. Could you just put it on the floor?" Well, the usher was really surprised by that, a little astonished, didn't know what to do, but he put the plate on the floor, and the boy stepped into it, and he said, "This is what I give to the Lord." Amen.